I want you to ask yourself, is this the life that you always dreamed? The life you're living now? Is this the life that you always imagined for yourself? Or is it a perpetual hell where every day is misery and every day is another victory just in surviving it? Where the pain is enough to break you down slowly and concisely and precisely. Where you lose faith in yourself because you're so depressed and you're so miserable, and it's been years since you had a woman, or if you even had a woman at all. And that's brutal for a man, because I'm a firm believer that part of a man's confidence comes from his ability to get women and to retain these women, and like at least to have sexual alleviation. Have you ever noticed the guys with the lowest self-esteem have like no love life, no significant other? And I believe it correlates. I believe a lot of guys that are able to attract, beautiful women, they go further in life simply because the way they look, and they had those good feel good experiences, those experiences that last a lifetime, those experiences when you're in the hospice bed and you close your eyes, you remember that one time he was with that nice bad little dame with a nice body frame, and he was getting a blowjob on a boat, like he was getting fellatio with a high ratio. And like at midnight by the lake, with the moon shining, in the background, and you had some good sexual alleviation, and then you made sweet love or whatever, right? Start hitting it from the back and making that nanny smack. And these memories, you know, each victory fuels the next victory, and each defeat fuels the next defeat. So if you're always losing in life, it's hard to break that cycle. If you're always winning in life, you know, and especially if you're winning because of your looks, it's very difficult to fail, unless you do something just atrocious. But for the most part, you can just breeze through life. Meanwhile, the rest of us, we got dreams and ambitions that will never be. We got girls who we always liked that don't want nothing to do with us. It's brutal. And then the loneliness and isolation, especially if you're somebody that you can see through the bullcrap of this world. You're going to be an extremely lonely person because you're not going to be talking about the football game, the World Cup, Spain versus, Argentina or whatever. Like, you don't care about that stuff because it doesn't matter. That's just distraction for the masses. I want to have real deep intellectual conversations. I want to have thought-provoking conversations. I want to have conversations that expand the mind and expand the spirit, instead of all these conversations that pretty much promote spiritual stagnation. And they don't promote the accumulation of relative information that can lead to you actually being free from this evil systematic matrix. We have to follow our dreams, no matter what. I know it's unrealistic. I know it's never going to happen. I know it. But if you let go of that hope, and you can't cope anymore, you're going to go insane. You have to find a hobby. You have to find something that you love and put your heart into it, because that's what's going to lead to just happiness, in this crazy world. Because if you're constantly bombarded with your 9 to 5 that you can't stand, around people you can't even stand, and you're doing, your 9 to 5, and it's just soul crushing, and then you got to deal with all types of external forces. Maybe you don't look the best. Maybe you're not tall. Maybe your economic situation is horrendous. But whatever it is, having, people talk to you crazy at work like your boss and yell at you, a full grown man, makes life even worse. It makes you feel like you're just not worth anything. I believe respect and dignity should always be done to people. Like I always show respect to people, unless somebody disrespects me, right? I think that's how it should go. You should always treat people with courtesy, kindness, and respect. But when somebody crosses the line at you, then, you have to defend yourself. Simple as that. And in a world like this where it's just filled with so many predators, assassins, shadow snipers, vicious vipers, malicious and sadistic twisted spirits, and other dark forces of the shadow abyss, when you have to deal with all these things, and you may have low self-esteem because you haven't had that much experience with women, and you always got pretty much dissed by girls, and Your own family kind of looks at you in a negative light, if you even have any family that's alive to do that. And you know that you don't really fit into this world because you feel like an outsider every single where that you go. It's hard to blend in when you know that most people are NPCs and Hylics, and they're just relics of the demiurge, just to be there, just to cause problems. And when you try to avoid problems by becoming the neat, then it's going to lead to defeat. Because eventually the demiurge is going to get his loose. All those years of your neat piece that you had, being in your room, watching anime, listening to music, being hikikomori, locked up in your room. As soon as the person that's allowing that passes away, you're going to be pretty much thrown to the streets and thrown to the wolves. And I'm going to tell you something about this life. It's merciless. And I know we already know this, but it's just a good reminder. It's merciless. It doesn't care about your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, your dreams, your plans, your aspirations, your inspirations, your ambitions, your goals. It doesn't care. It's going to knock you on your ass, and it's going to continue to do it. And you have to fight back. You have to believe. You have to believe that you have some type of talent or hobby or something that can give you some type of confidence. Because guys like us, we got to find confidence in other ways. We can't find confidence in our economics. We're not wealthy. We can't find confidence in our looks. We're not handsome. We can't find confidence in having girls. We don't get any. And we can't find confidence in having a family and a house and a nice car and a successful business. So, damn it, let's find confidence in writing our own anime. Let's find confidence in making our own music. Let's find confidence in finding our own hobbies that we can integrate and give us something to generate, right? We don't have to be just trapped in this circle of devastation all the time, right? I mean, there's no way out of it, but we try to make the best of it. But I know it's hard because society's set up to tease you, to humiliate you if you don't win in a traditional way. If you ain't got a good, nice career job at a certain age and you're not married and you don't have any kids, people are going to look at you like you're weird. They're going to be just totally astonished at your existence. Like, what the hell? This guy's not contributing to society. This guy's not having children, so he's an outsider. And we're going to treat him like an outsider. So we're going to kind of banish him to the shadow realm. And that's when you start getting people gossiping about you, making up rumors about you, taking things out of context purposely because they don't like you. And they're trying to paint you into a demon. So when they attack you, they feel nothing. That's what a lot of people do. A lot of evil people do that. They turn people into characters. They turn people into just something that they try to mock. But in reality, they're the ones being mocked because they're the ones that are trapped in ignorance and they don't need no deliverance. I always say this: when you tell people, or when people see before their eyes that there's a new world order, you can see the fomentation and integration of artificial intelligence. That's the future. Excuse me. And eventually they're going to try to they're going to try to take human consciousness and put it inside robots. So they're going to try to take your soul and put it inside a robot body and then call that immortality. You know, but that's a different story. That's a whole nother conversation topic. But eventually they want control of your consciousness because the demiurge knows he has control over your flesh to a degree, right? But some of us, when you gain gnosis, you can escape the demiurge traps and wickedness upon you passing away. But if your soul gets trapped in one of those immortal bodies, kind of like the video game Mega Man X or Mega Man Zero, where they have those immortal bodies, like, Mega Man X is like thousands of years old or whatever. Like bodies like that, they're going to try to take your consciousness, your soul, and do some type of soul transfer inside those things, trap your souls inside those robotic bodies. I know it sounds strange and I know it sounds weird, but we're slowly getting there to where they're going to try to turn the reality into a virtual reality, you know? I mean, look what Sony's doing. No more discs, no more physical media, discless. And then, you hear Elon Musk talking about neural chips and controlling your mind. Then a lot of us, if you pay with your debit card, credit card, whatever, you know, that's a that's a moneyless transaction. If you order DoorDash, like if you ever order DoorDash or Uber Eats, there's no cash in that. Everything's paid for by your card and through the app. They just drop it off at your door and bada bing, bada boom. Like sometimes you don't even have to interact with them if you don't want. That's like a cashless transaction. That's the future. And the future is to trap the divine spark, is to trap the souls. You know, There's a reason why there's so much orchestrated violence and ignorance and wars. It's not a coincidence. It's not an accident. Everything in this world is calculated. Everything in this world is meant to be done on purpose with a purpose. You know, it's meant to be done on purpose with a purpose. And the verification of that is just seeing how constant it is. You see the same things in the news cycle. There's an outbreak of this disease. There's another this disease. There's that. There's a heat wave going on. There's a wave of sickness. Oh, the FDA recalled a bag of chips. Like the FDA says, oh, this particular brand of chips has metal inside of it. It's like, how does chips get metal in it or whatever? They start recalling different types of like I know you guys seen that. Like you see those commercials or you see those like in the news or whatever, like you go on Google in the search engine and you see like the little stories and it talks about something being recalled. you know, like like tons of rice being recalled because it has some type of contamination. Instead, it's pretty frequent. It's pretty frequent. You got water contamination and everything else. I don't know, man. This world is sick. Like there's always something that's going to keep the pain going, keep the loosh going, keep the loosh flowing. Every day you're going to try to battle something, whether it's depression, whether it's economic stress, and whether it's like, you're going to your job, but you're not getting no fulfillment from it. But those bills got to be paid and your landlord doesn't care. Like your landlord wants that money, and you got to pay that rent because that's just the system that we're set up in, where it parasites off of you. The system's designed so you never have time for yourself, so you can think on spiritual growth and development. I always say the most important thing what life is about is preparing yourself for the transition to another dimension, because you're going to be on that side for a while. So while I'm alive and I got my brain right now, I'm going to try my best to prepare myself for another dimension. Try to fight off evil demons and evil things that try to drag me to hell. To make energy aurora beams like Articuno from Pokemon, to create me an energy shield and all types of things I can imagine to fight these demons and monsters like Dark Souls or Kratos, and God of War, believe I can do it, There's a thing I call spiritual combat training, and I pretty much make a list on spiritual moves that I would like to do. So if I pass away and let's say these demons rush me, I'm going to say fire blast, tornado storm, and a big old fiery tornado is going to come around me and turn to like a phoenix, and it's going to turn to like a dragon as well. And it's going to just do a beam blast on anything around me. Like, this is what I think, and I think of different moves and different combos and combinations. And I try to memorize them, and when I go to sleep, I try to memorize the names. So if I pass away, in my soul, because it's going to be crazy when your soul leaves your body. That's going to be a weird, interesting feeling because your body's shutting down, and then boom, you're thrown into the spirit world. So I want to be able to focus my mind and be able to recall some of my special, spiritual moves and combos. I'm serious, because it's going to be scary, man. Going to the next life, the next dimension, the next hell realm. It's going to be terrifying, man. It's going to be terrifying. Like, have you ever seen where those wild gazelle in Africa, like they give birth, you know what I mean? And then those wild dogs come around, and those wild dogs like rip open the belly and devour the baby calf whole and devour the mother. It's like, wow, how violent, how merciless. That's nature. Nature is cruel like that, You can see like an American eagle, which is a beautiful animal, but then it goes into the river and snatches up a fish. But it has to do that because it has to feed its babies. But the world is founded off that. The world is founded on aggressive dominance. It's founded on, people who cheat and steal and do evil things to get to the top. Notice the people that are multimillionaires and billionaires are some of the most sickest, wickedest people ever. And some of the people that are poor in poverty positions are some of the most kindest, sweetest people ever. You can have somebody that's a millionaire, right? And you ask them for $1 and they wouldn't give it to you. But if you could, let's say you go up to Elon Musk and say, hey, Elon Musk, can I have $5? Elon Musk will look at you and be like, and keep on walking. He may even yell explicitives at you. But if you go to somebody who's been struggling or somebody that knows you're struggling, they may have a regular job, but they will give you something. They'll give you $20, $25, $40, $50, $100, whatever, $200. They'll give you something because they know how it feels. They know you're going through it. They're trying to help you. They care about you. If somebody doesn't break bread with you, they don't really care about you like that. And then somebody that you like, if you create a business with somebody and they start tripping about money or whatever, even though it's 50-50, and they start wanting to be greedy and get more, and they're not even like contributing, that's when things get tricky and icky, you know? So that's why a lot of us are alone because when you're by yourself, there's no problems, you know? Um, no man, no problem, you know? And when you're by yourself, you have time to think and reflect. But sometimes these reflections can be dangerous in a way, I feel like, because sometimes I find my mind going to dark places, you know? And it's simply because of all the stress and things that I've been through in life. Like a lot of things we've been through in life is soul crushing. It breaks our minds, it breaks our spirits. You know, it's very heartbreaking when you never find the girl that you always wanted. I believe every man should be able to find a girl. Every man should be able to experience the love of a woman, the hug of a woman, the warmth of a woman at 2 a.m. You know, and she wakes up and you're like, hey, you trying to smoke? You know what I mean? You got to smoke a blunt with each other. You may order some DoorDash, you know, and then you take a shower with each other. You know, you go back in the room, you start hitting it from the back, you know, you start hitting it from the side, else you ride, you start getting into it, you know? You start giving fellatio with a high ratio, you know, and that's going to make, and then, you know, you achieve sexual alleviation, then you go to sleep cuddling, wake up in the morning, you know, do it again. Maybe do it again after that. Right? And that just makes you more happy. It takes away a lot of stress because when you're a touch-starved, lonely man and you don't have that much experience with females and you work a crappy job and you're surrounded by enemies and you're being attacked by all types of evil demonic forces that's just extorting your pain and making you go insane, it's hard to believe in yourself. It's hard to believe that you can do anything when you're constantly trapped and reminded that you're nothing. The job you work at reminds you of your place, your size, your skin color configuration, all these things you got to take in consideration because society judges people on the visual. We live in a visual society, especially America. America is a narcissistic, materialistic, ritualistic, sadistic, twisted society that worships idols, false idols. You should never worship no celebrity. And you should never treat nobody like they're better than anybody else. That's like a celebrity. It's ridiculous because a lot of them don't even write their own songs. A lot of them, like a lot of them, get their songs written for them by like demons. You know, you think I'm joking, but there's a lot. Like you gotta understand, there's a lot of witchcraft in the music industry. I'm talking about black magic, real witchcraft in the music industry. They utilize magic, magical symbols, magical sigils, and other type of magical combinations and integrations to change the flowing frequencies to make people more susceptible to evil energies. It's serious. You know, the Central Intelligence Agency has a whole division on this called the Psychological Division. You know, there's a book called Mind War. It's a book called Mind War by Michael Aquino, an ex-United States general and a high-ranking Satanist. His name is Michael Aquino, and his book is called Mind War. Read that book, get the PDF on it, and it tells you about how they utilize frequencies in certain vicinities in certain cities. They're like the CIA, they have like these type of towers in certain places, and they emit these frequencies, and it kind of makes people more susceptible. Like, have you ever heard a ringing in your ear? That's part of it, you know? Like, if you ever just in a room by yourself and you just hear a ringing in your ear, what's that ringing sound? Just a random ringing in your ear. That's them trying to tap into your energies and loose you and soul trap you, you know? Seriously, it's crazy, you know? And it's all around us because the esoteric is all around us, but they never teach it to you. Remember, there's a whole history of this earth that they've never told us. There's a whole history of this earth that they'll never confide in us. They'll never let us know the truth. The Atlantic ice wall, the undersea civilizations, the breakaway civilizations, the relic civilizations, the relit civilizations, and all types of things that they'll never tell you. They'll never tell you that there's giant monsters on the ground and deep within the oceans. There's giant monsters, big as Godzilla, you know, deep inside the deepest depths of the oceans, deep inside the earth. You got monsters as big as Godzilla. Monsters as big as titans, giants, all beneath our feet, and all in all other dimensions and realms as well. All this is secret and classified. But the ancients talked about it. But a lot of people don't do research because, you know, they're like, what? But if you look into every ancient religion, they talk about supernatural forces that were the beginning and fomentation of those civilizations. from the Aztecs, from the ancient Romans, from the ancient Mesopotamia, ancient China. All of these places had supernatural origins, especially Egypt. If you look at the history, how these nations came to be, it was crazy. It was supernatural forces in all of them. So what does that tell you about this world? What's being hidden from us? There's a reason why we're always sad. There's a reason why we can't make it in life. It's orchestrated, man. This whole society is rigged. It's a rigged, evil, sick, twisted society, and it doesn't care about our feelings or emotions, which just makes me sick. It's like, damn, we go through a lot in this life. We go through a lot in this life, but we're just going to be ignored and just thrown away. I believe there should be a certain city designation for people in our situation. If you're over the age of 25 and you're not married, you should qualify to have a free house and a free apartment paid for by the government, because let the government pay you for not crashing out. That's what I think the government should do. Like, because there's a lot of men in our situation they're crazy. They're mentally ill. They need mental help. And a lot of men's mental help is not really focused on. It's not a prioritization, but we need mental help. We need mental help and mental health sessions, because it's like in this position, it's like PTSD. You develop PTSD like a soldier, right? Hypervigilant, always in the enemy battlefield. You can barely sleep at times. And when you do sleep, it's like, it can be the most peaceful thing or the most horrifying thing. You have dreams and ambitions that you can never have. Every girl that you like doesn't want nothing to do with you, and that hurts because it's like, damn, why can't I just get a girl that I like? Like, this girl's kind of cute and she likes me back, and boom, bada bing. And we hit it off. The next thing you know, getting fellatio with iratio and etc., etc., etc. But there's always some type of drama. There's always some type of problem. There's always something that stops us from being truly happy in this world. And I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. I want to be happy. I want to have peace and tranquility. I want to have all my dreams come true. But I know it's, just a cope, just a cope. But we have to cope. It's either that or the other way. So, we have to cope. And after a certain age, man, it's like time just flies. Once you reach your late 20s, like once you get to like 28 years old, you're going to start noticing, I'm scared that you turn 30. And then those few years are going to zoom by. Next thing you know, you're 31. And you're like, damn, what happened? The next thing you know, boom, you're in your mid 30s. Then boom, you're in your 40s. Then boom, you're in your 50s. And boom, you're in your 60s. And now, you already know that what's coming next, you could be going to hell. It's not a joke. I know I ain't trying to scare nobody, but you could be going to hell. So you got to prepare your minds. You got to gain that gnosis so you don't end up in somebody's fire burning up forever, and with demons and monsters and giant spiders and snakes and abyssal windstorms and terrifying dark shadow waters with giant whirlpools as big as entire cities, and then you're spinning around with other souls and screaming in the darkness with monsters lurking in. You don't want to end up in a realm like that. So we have to gain gnosis. We have to gain spiritual knowledge, man, because I don't want to pass away and then go to an even worse hell. I need to get to the pleroma. And I know the demiurge is going to make it hard. He's not going to make it easy for us to just get to that pleroma. So we got to gain that gnosis, gain that secret knowledge and wisdom. But it's hard because we're humans. We have vices. We have things that entice us. We have things that make us so divisive. Like, people in the year 2026 are still worrying about skin color configuration variation, when the history of humanity, there's always people that are different based on their environments and other environmental factors that play a key in the pigmentation and the relative melanin somebody has in their skin. But to this day and age, there's a certain conceptualization that's worldwide and it's integrated in the minds of billions. And it's extremely difficult because it affects all areas of society. And we got to stay strong, in this position, because the world is always trying to break us. It's always trying to take our happiness. It's always trying to cause us misery. And it's not a mystery that it conditioned me to behave a certain way. When your own family turns their backs against you, when your own friends turn their backs against you, or when your own friends, when they are no longer in this dimension due to their own hands it's saddening and it's maddening and it's confusing. It's like, why does so much negative things happen to certain people and so many positive things happen to others? It's like this God or this being or this thing or whatever it is, it has a favorites. It plays favoritism. There's people right now that never experienced the hell that we experienced, that never experienced the isolation, the devastation, that never having a woman in your life that really loved you and cared about you. Being a grown man but still being treated like a child and talked to crazy by a myriad of people. People looking at you like you're a psychopath when really you're just trying to survive, you know? Like people messing with you when you're just trying to just mind your business and just do your thing, you know? You've been through a lot in life. You don't have no time to be messing around, playing around with people. You know, you got to just mind your business and stay focused on your dreams and ambitions, because that's going to stop you from going crazy. We have to focus on what makes us happy, and we have to cope for the fact that that we don't have any wives or girlfriends, and a lot of girls probably don't want nothing to do with us, and it's brutal because we don't look a certain way, all because of our looks. You know, all because we're not tall. You know, some of us are overweight, but for the rest, some people are in shape and they gym max, and that doesn't mean anything. It's good for your health, but it's not going to really help getting a female if your face is not what she wants and she just doesn't like you. She has her preference. She has something that she wants. She has her idea, Chad and Tyrone, in her mind. And if you don't fit those exact qualifications, well, you're going to get, you know, rejected, and it hurts. And what makes it worse is when this is a continuous thing, not a one-off thing, but a thing that happens so many times. You know, when something keeps happening over and over and over again, it creates an implant in your mind. So your mind expects that thing to happen all the time. It doesn't expect it to stop. If somebody is used to walking down a certain street every day, and then all of a sudden the street teleports to the air, it's going to throw them off. It's going to throw them off guard. What the hell? Why is that street in the sky? How the hell did I get up there? What happened? It's like, or the street just disappears. It's just your mind gets focused on certain things. Your mind gets used to certain things. And a lot of us, unfortunately, our minds got used to chaos. They got used to just wickedness, that surrounds us. And a lot of us, we just want peace. We just want to be happy. We just want to do what we love for a living and be happy, be successful in our own means, be successful doing our own thing, be successful, even with money, but doing something that we love. That would be the biggest, coolest thing ever. Imagine getting paid doing what you love. Imagine making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars with an idea that you created and generated and integrated into society, like an anime. Imagine if you made the next type of Pokemon, $1 billion thing, but it doesn't work that way because the Demiurge uses everything as a weapon against us. You know, a lot of Pokemons come from Japanese spirits and Japanese demons, in case you didn't know. You know, you gotta look into that, you know. So the reason why it's big is because they want to implement it and integrated it for their magical brainwashing purposes. It sounds ridiculous, I know. But you gotta understand that they want the population to be dumbed down and not know them being controlled. We're all being mind controlled to some degree. All of us. Look how we just go to the 9 to 5 every day and we don't really fight back. We just accept it. Oh, the rent's $2,100 a month. Oh well, I gotta, this was back in, like, there's a movie coming out about 1381 talking about the peasants' revolt. They revolted against those leaders in those days in medieval Europe. Like every time the king steps his bounds too much, then people start to revolt. you know. So a lot of people nowadays is just that the world has become so docile, even though it's still hostile. We live in a hostile, violent, sadistic, twisted world, and it gets worse every single year. And a lot of us, if we don't find love, it's going to get, lonely every more. It's going to get even more lonely every year. So we have to find hobbies and something to keep our minds occupied, something to keep our minds happy, something to keep our minds on the up and up and the straight and narrow. And we have to try to have a more positive look in life. Try to, even though that's cope, we got to still try to look at some of the good things in life, even if it's a little bit, even if it's small. That gives us hope. That gives us light in the darkness. But not the demiurge light, the real love light from Sophia. I really wish that I lived in another dimension where I was rich and successful and famous and had all the women, the cars, the Bentleys, the Lamborghinis, the mansions, the airplanes, the yachts, and the boats. I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's what I dreamed. I always wanted to be a multi-millionaire, but I guess this life just isn't fair.